Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with New York-based jazz pianist and vocalist Champian Fulton. We caught up with her about her newest release of a highly anticipated album called Birdsong. This new project is a celebration of Charlie Parker's centennial. She surrounds herself with great musicians, including special guest saxophonist Scott Hamilton, bassist Hide Tanaka, drummer Fukushi Tainaka, and her father, Stephen Fulton, on the flugelhorn. It will be available worldwide on August 28, 2020, the day before Charlie Parker's 100th birthday. The music of Charlie Parker has played a huge role in her life since the very beginning. We dig into this album, coming out during a pandemic and this strange time on the planet with her, circa 2020. Enjoy.
The great thing that I've noticed is you've been so active during this pandemic, and the one thing before we get to the new album, which is wonderful, and what you've been doing during the pandemic, is the thing that's interesting about this time period that we're living through right now is that I think, one of the biggest, most magnanimous moments for all of us was 9/11 when it happened. And the beginnings of this in March was almost like the second plane going into the towers. So talk to me a little bit about early to mid-March when you saw that everything was going to come to a grinding halt and turn into what we're living today.
It was really shocking. Actually, a few days before the lockdowns began here in New York, I was actually in Phoenix. It was very eerie because when I was flying home that day, a lot of the flights were just empty. The airport was empty. And, people were already starting to be sort of very clean, not wanting to touch things, whatever. And I got home and I thought, this is really weird. And I was supposed to leave in 10 days for Europe, and I was thinking, I don't know what's going to happen. And then the lockdown hit, and everything just, sort of, I don't want to say fell apart, but a little bit. It was like every gig was canceled. Oh, this gig is canceled. That gig is canceled. April is canceled. May is canceled. And it all sort of got canceled within the first week or so of those lockdowns, which was like mid-March or last week of March. And it was just really shocking. To me, I was, because I was worried, but then I was like, oh my gosh, what about all my gigs? What am I going to do? And I was so upset about it. And, my family, they were like, well, why don't you do a live stream and say hi, to your fans? Because they thought it would make me feel better and to talk to people and see how everyone was doing. And I did a live stream, and I can't say how much it made me feel better. Because it was just sort of a way to connect and realize, everyone is really having a hard time and struggling. And I felt like, I have this community here and we're going to be okay.
The one thing that's very present and very obvious about what you do, no matter what, whether pre-pandemic or now, is that you do have a radiance about you. And that's been the great thing about this, is that you definitely do exude this optimism. And I've noticed interviewing musicians that overwhelmingly jazz musicians have a tendency of having an optimism. I think part of that is based on who you are as a person, but another part of that is that I've realized too, epiphanies that have come to me during this, is that jazz musicians are always thrown into uncertain situations, and you're supposed to create something beautiful out of something that could be for a lot of people chaotic and anxious, riddled, and nerving. But you all do that. It's almost like the Corona era is made for the artists known as jazz musicians.
I think you're right. There's something to that, like, with improvising in the music, and also our lifestyles with traveling and touring and things sort of being last minute, being freelancers where maybe you have really busy months and months where you don't do a lot. So we're sort of, you're right, I think, easily adapted to the situation. Maybe not easily, but able to adapt.
Yeah. Well, the one thing, too, about adaptability is that I know in Kansas City we had this huge slate of things that were going to happen for the Charlie Parker festivities. They've been pared down. Yeah, so it's like everything kind of it's just kind of got, torn apart a little bit. But it's still happening. It's still going to be part of, like, the resurrection, I think, not only of jazz in Kansas City, but kind of emblematic of jazz overall. And you have a wonderful new album that's out that is paying respect to Charlie Parker, 100th birthday this year, Birdsong. It's always wonderful when you have new material come out, but with this one specifically, there's going to be a couple questions about this, but first of all, it's coming out during a pandemic. Talk to me about that feeling.
Well, we recorded this record late last year in 2019, and we had planned to release it in the summer of 2020, leading up to Bird's birthday, which is coming up here in August. And, I had all this, really not to, go on and on about what was going to happen, but it was going to be a great summer of touring, and we had a lot of gigs lined up with Scott Hamilton in Europe and also here in the States domestically. I definitely had expectations about that. And then when all this started happening and I started seeing other people push back their records, I think the first person I saw was Norah Jones, and they delayed her release by 2 months. And I thought, I guess we should delay it. So, we pushed it back to August. And I honestly, at this time, I was thinking, that'll be fine. Like, we'll be able to have gigs. Everything will be okay by August. And then, of course, it's really not, at least not here in New York. We're not traveling and the clubs are closed. But I can't delay it anymore. I mean, I wanted to put it out for Bird's birthday. And also, when you make a record and you have it and you like it, you want the world to hear it and see it. I'm excited. My ideas about it are changing. My expectations are changing, but I'm having still a good time releasing the record.
You have great musicians on this album. It's a stellar lineup. Talk to me a little bit about the cast and what was the conversation like recording this?
Well, so it's my regular band, which is Fukushi Tainaka on drums and Hide Tanaka on bass and Stephen Fulton on flugelhorn. And we have a special guest, my friend and tenor saxophone player Scott Hamilton, who I think is really one of the best horn players anywhere in the world right now. And I think him and Stephen together are very well matched for a quintet sound. I wanted to do something this year. We try to release a record every year, and when we were thinking about what we were going to do, I wanted to do something with Scott because we were playing together a lot. And then I was like, it's Charlie Parker's centennial. I'm such a big Bird fan. I talked to Scott about it. He's also, of course, a huge Charlie Parker fan, and we thought this is a great project for us to work on and enjoy working on, and also I think have something that people will enjoy when they hear it.
The one thing that's always so endearing, it still blows me away about Bird, we happen to be in this town. Chuck Haddock, he wrote a book on Bird. He has a local show here. He is probably one of the most brilliant minds of music I've ever been around, and he's a radio host. I truly treasure him as a resource here in Kansas City. But he wrote a book on Bird. Great thing about Chuck is that the last time I saw him, it was last year, they had this artist series here in town where it was a plethora of different, from celebrating jazz to visual arts to dance to all of these different things. And I got to be on a show at the Mutual Musicians Foundation, which is a big hub here off 18 and Vine. And Chuck was there, and he was telling me his story about how Bird, how he ate a chicken leg up on the corner from where we were at. It's like, all of these stories and vignettes living in Kansas City blow me away, and Chuck is probably the most treasured resource, not only in Kansas City, but around the world about Bird. And I'm always blown away by the influence that he yields, and he would be 100, and it doesn't go away. It's timeless, what he does. And my question to you is this. He's obviously permeated the way that you approach jazz in this album. Why is Bird so essential? Like, even if this year your album hits somebody that has never heard of Bird and makes them want to listen to him, why is that significant?
Well, that is exactly what I hope that it does. I'm a cheerleader for jazz. I'm a jazz fan. I want more people to love the music I love. And I think Charlie Parker's music, it's perfect, and it makes you feel good. It's beautiful. He has a beautiful sound. He has this amazing approach to rhythm, which I don't even think we've really seen someone who can even do that, maybe since him. And his ideas are both, harmonically challenging, but melodic. And I think his music to musicians, of course, we're amazed and we go, wow, but I think also to the listener, they listen and they hear it and they feel something. And that's important to me. And that's what I want to do. You know, I want to be in this tradition, and especially being from Oklahoma, I feel sort of this southwestern United States, the, you know, regional connection to Kansas City. I have to say, you know, you're talking about the idea of him being there in Kansas City and these vignettes about him being around 18th and Vine. I visited a few times, and I totally get chills, like just being there and being like, wow, like this is where Bird was. And even last time I was in Kansas City, I went down to Crispus Attic, where he went to middle school, and I wanted to like walk between the school and where he grew up to like feel the walk he used to take to school when he was a little kid. And it was so amazing.
It really is, and I still feel that way when I go down to 18 and Vine. Sometimes I just like to go down there and just soak in, just because everything down there is kind of in rebuild mode, but it is amazing. In fact, there's an exhibit that I went down the other day, and it was closed at the time, but it's one that was curated by Chuck Haddock. He runs something called the Mar Sound Archives, and it's one of the largest archives, I believe, in the Midwest, if not the country. And he, being a front runner of Bird, it's a big deal. So I went down there. In fact, last year at the Blue Room on 18 and Vine, I went to a celebration, and he was a panel speaker, and they had fried chicken in the back, and I had to go back and get a chicken leg because I was like, there ain't nothing better this whole time that I've known Bird than to be here and eat a chicken leg. I mean, that's the moment that you ascend to another level. So it was pretty cool. What are you going to be doing? You know, I know the 29th is the official birthday. Do you have anything planned for any Bird celebrations?
Actually, I'm so happy that we were supposed to celebrate the CD release this month of Birdsong at Birdland, which is my favorite club here in the city. I've played there many times, but also so cool because it's, you know, Birdland and named after Bird. And, of course, it's a different location than it used to be. But I was disappointed that wasn't going to happen. And we were, you know, talking, and we decided to do a live stream from the club celebrating the CD release and celebrating Charlie Parker. And it's actually going to be on September 1st, which is the Tuesday after his birthday, at 7 p.m. Eastern, so 7 p.m. here in New York, and it's going to be online, and that's going to be the main focus of what we're doing. But, of course, I'm also basically I live stream every Sunday, and I think for the next couple of weeks we'll be focusing on Charlie Parker.
Wonderful. My final question, and I think we've kind of worked our way around this, so to speak, but I just want to come right out and ask, for those that get this album and listen to it and take it in, what do you want them to get from this experience?
You know, thinking a lot of people now, I think, because Bird's music is, you know, from an earlier part of our music, it's not, you know, not hi-fi quality. It's, quote, you know, some people feel like it's old-fashioned. He plays older, quote-unquote, older songs. And I think they have ideas about his music that are not really accurate. And so what I'm hoping to do with this record is to show, you know, these songs are beautiful, they're romantic, they're sentimental, they're swinging. It's not just super fast, like people think of bebop as being some kind of like hectic, frantic thing. This doesn't have to be like that, although we play fast on the record. And I just want them to have, you know, maybe to take a look at that music and say, oh, I'm going to check this out. And just, I hope to bring more people into the fold of being Charlie Parker fans and jazz fans and just really loving this music as much as I do.
Wonderful. It's a wonderful album. Champion, thank you for reaching out. It's always wonderful to talk with you, and good luck with everything. Stay safe.
Of course. Thank you so much, Joe, and you guys too down there in Kansas City.
Thanks for listening and tuning into another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest singers and players in Oklahoma, New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Champion for always putting her best foot forward for the world of jazz out there, for her music and her time. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.